Moving on to step number 45 of the 67 Steps Reviews. This one was called Bone Thugs and Harmony and the Tyranny of the First and the 15th. Undoing the Chains of the Rat Race. And if you're not familiar, Bone Thugs and Harmony is an American hip-hop group that has a song called The First of the Month, referring to the dread of the bills being due. And most people, perhaps you, perhaps a few people you know, perhaps everyone you know, is under the captive of some cycle, the tyranny of bills being due. Certainly we're never going to escape monthly bills, but there is another way to deal with it. And the first and the 15th in the song represents your car payment being due, rent being due, medical bills, other bills just coming in like clockwork. And you get out of this tyranny, this rat race, in one of two ways. One is easy and one is more difficult. The easiest way to break out of this tyranny is to simply increase your income. Ty has this business partner named John that asked him one day while they were eating lunch, Ty, what's the opposite of monthly bills? And Ty thought about it for a second. He said, I guess it would be monthly income. So no one will ever escape these bills, but you can certainly increase your income and have them exceed your bills dramatically, and that will reduce your stress. And Friedrich Nietzsche says this is about rising above the crowd and being extraordinary. And you know, the bank doesn't really care if your mom got sick, if your car broke down, if you broke your leg, if you have some other unexpected bills. They just want their money. And the solution to this in recent times has been the 9-to-5 job. Really, a 9-to-5 job is relatively new. Maybe not new to you, but new to humanity. A few hundred years ago, people didn't get up out of bed and drive to some job and work for somebody else. They worked on the farm. And you know, we're shaped by that which we grow up around. Dr. Helen Fisher says we have mental mind maps. So whatever you grew up seeing your parents or guardians doing, that's probably what you're doing right now. If you saw them with just a 9-to-5 and no other source of income, that's probably your only source of income. If you grew up seeing your parents eating junk food and you ate junk food, you're probably still doing that. You probably have a belly. But if you want to create a different reality, you have to change your perspective. And the second way to break out of this tyranny is to rethink wealth. Historically, it was the warriors like Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great that just pillaged and murdered and took what they wanted. Then after that, it was the kings. So it was very hard to have wealth. You had to be born into the kingdom or at least maybe be a duke. So very few people had the wealth. And then more recently, it was the Spaniards that were in search of gold and silver. And then it was the banks more recently. And now it's the entrepreneur / investor. And Ty gives this kind of wealth pyramid that we all need to move through, representing 4 different stages of income. The first is scarcity, where probably most people are at. That represents people making $75,000 approximately a year or less. You're going to have too much stress in your life. You're not going to be able to have the financial independence that you should be. And the second one is financial independence. That's where you're making $75,000 to about $150,000 a year. Again, this is American currency. After that is prosperity, $250,000 to about $1 million a year. And lastly, the tip of the iceberg that we shall be striving for is wealth and impact. That's where you're making $1 million to $2 million a year at least. And that's a great place to be because you'll certainly have options. Ty doesn't like to call money. He likes to call them freedom units, because the more money you have, the more freedom you have. The ability to drop at the drop of a hat, go do what you want to do if you're doing something you don't want to be doing. And he says escaping the unpayable bills is the goal, and never before has escaping the tyranny of the 9-to-5 been more doable. These days you now have 20-year-old billionaires. And then even more impressive is Oprah Winfrey, a African-American woman who was born into poverty and now has a net worth of $2 billion. Not that she didn't inherit, she created it through her Oprah Winfrey television network. And you know, Joel Salatin says, I don't know how people can sleep with all the opportunities that are in front of them. And he says, you get to financial independence by investing in the future. You read a book while everybody else is, bullshitting around at the bars and whatnot. And he says, you become a stoic. You invest in the future to make a better life for yourself. It's just drive an okay car so in the future you can drive 3 nice cars. You live in an okay house so that later on when your stoicism pays off, you can have multiple houses around the world, maybe a guest house for when someone visits you. But he says the opposite of the entrepreneur investor is being a consumer. You only buying things that rust, rot, and depreciate. But this 67 steps is again about awareness, just like the first episode. And his questions at the end of this particular lesson are, in what ways are you under the tyranny of the first and the 15th? How are you living under one of these prior concepts of wealth? And what are some things you can do to become an investor? Thanks so much for watching on CN Review number 46. Take care.